because the police always side with the bully, and that's exactly what caused this scandal in the first place. And the institutional complicity, I agree with you, Amy. I think that there's I've seen Maggie Oliver talking about the need to maybe bring in a judge or a chair or some legal professional from another country who isn't mixed up in the complicity and the vested interests of this, because there are instances where police officers, one of these victims goes to report, and then all of a sudden the abusers have been tipped off. How could that be anything other than a leak from the police force?
Hello and welcome to Newspeak, our weekly look at the news agenda. I'm Peter Whittle, and actually we've got, even more than a full house today, I'm very pleased to say. We've got Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, Senior Fellow and Royal Historian, obviously you know him very well. Amy Gallagher of Stand Up to Woke. Good to see you, Amy. And also our fellow Emma Webb. Oh, actually, I'm calling you Emma Webb, but it's actually I've dead named you since
transitioned.
Yeah, I think actually you're Emma Trimble now, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, and
it's been that long.
Yes,
it has been that long.
She's been married and divorced twice. Yeah,
it's very, very good to see you, Emma. And finally, Dr. Philip Kiszely, Senior Fellow and National Organiser of our Locals. As usual, brings me to a great segue there, Philip. So we've got a lot of things coming up, haven't we?
So many things happening at the moment. Thanks, Peter. Yes, we've got our conference, our London conference, next Saturday, 1st of November, with this person sat next to me. The tickets, you might, if you've been onto the website and you've been onto Eventbrite, the tickets are saying that they've sold out, but I think we can secure some more tickets for that, about 20 odd extra tickets. So if you do want to come to it, do buy a ticket. We'd love to see you there. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a fantastic lineup of speakers. We've also got lots of other things going on as well. We've got David Starkey in Cambridge, I think, and we've got Eric Kaufman in London. So lots and lots of stuff going on. If you want to get involved, do get in touch with us. It's locals@newcultureforum.org.uk. All events are free unless they're ticketed events, if you know what I mean. And we just love to hear from you. So yes, lots of stuff going on, Peter.
Emma, as Philip said, you're going to be speaking on what? Do you know?
Well, it's the London conference.
It's the London conference.
I'm going to be talking about being a Londoner, what it means to be a Londoner in this horrible state of affairs.
Good. And
as I was talking to Rafe last night, the title of my talk is London, My London. I'll be talking about, in my view, as a sort of preview of what I'm planning to say. I think Londoners, like ourselves, have experienced the dispossession the rest of the country is experiencing right now. We experienced that early. And so I think in some ways, Londoners have some edge over the rest of the country in terms of understanding really what's at stake. And also just talking about really, how people can have courage and take action to try and make good of a bad situation.
So it will be very much around the capital, keeping to the locals theme. Very, very, should be a great one. So 20 tickets left. Good. Get onto it. Right. Okay. There's trouble, isn't there, Rafe, when it comes to this endless seeming saga about the grooming gangs inquiry. There's new kind of things hitting it this week, isn't there?
Yes, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, the scandal deepens. It was 4 months ago that Keir Starmer was shamed into calling a national inquiry thanks to the exposure given by Elon Musk. And 4 months later, they still haven't got anyone to chair this inquiry. Nobody wants to get themselves dirty by associating themselves with such a topic, it seems. They even haven't decided on the remit for this inquiry, what they're going to be looking at. And on top of all of that, now 4 rape victims, 4 survivors who were on the panel of this inquiry have resigned in disgust at what they see as an already biased inquiry that has its predetermined results and is in essence an attempt to cover up what really happened in the north of England and elsewhere. And the general feeling is now relevant that this inquiry is not going to achieve anything because the Labour Party seem determined to ensure that it's kicked into the long grass long enough that when the results finally come out, they will be out of power. Because they are scared of what it's going to expose. It's going to lift a rock on the culture of what was happening in the north of England, and they're going to find all sorts of slime and sleaze. The hands of the Labour Party are stained with complicity in the industrial scale rape of young girls. Essentially, they were trading knowledge in the rape gangs for votes. And this was the cover-up of the rape gangs wasn't done for multiculturalism. It wasn't done for social cohesion. It was done for the base purpose of securing votes for the Labour Party. He basically said, we know what's going on, but we're going to turn a blind eye to all of that if you promise to support us, because they're desperately afraid of losing this Muslim vote to these new independent MPs. And the local MPs were involved in this, councillors were involved in this. And this is why, of course, the Labour Party originally wanted to just have 5 local inquiries. Yeah. They wanted Oldham and Rochdale and Rotherham to mark their own homework. This is the sort of thing that was going on. They don't want this statutory inquiry to delve into that. And then we had Jess Phillips in the House of Commons defending all of it, defending the indefensible. And now these rape victims have said they want Jess Phillips to resign if there's going to be any confidence left in this national inquiry. Because remember, Jess Phillips is the Minister for Safeguarding Women. It's her very job to do this. And she's very quick to condemn any white chap who might, say something on the street to some young attractive lady. But she's completely silent about the misogyny, the sexual violence, the aggression emanating from certain Muslim communities. She will never call that out. By pure coincidence, her majority in Parliament is only about 693. So she's beholden to that same Muslim vote. It's absolutely appalling. This is the greatest scandal of the 21st century, and it's only getting deeper.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's actually gone right to the root of the legitimacy of the state, actually. Yeah. I think it's killed that social contract. The thing is about this inquiry particularly, you're going to have balls of steel to take it on, aren't you now?
Yes, I think so. It's a poison chalice, however way you look at it. I think to do it properly, we were talking about this before, weren't we? To do it properly, you would have to be protected for the rest of your life, because you are literally putting your life on the line. I think the votes point that Rafe has just made there is absolutely spot on. But what's really happening here is that Jess Phillips and co are doing exactly the same thing they've always done, which is not listening to the victims and actually saying that the victims are liars. Now, I mean, just some of the, I've just been writing about this, so a lot of this is fresh in my mind for a publication for us. I mean, some of the stuff is just incredible. I mean, one, they were calling these victims prostitutes when they were 10 years old. So they were essentially blaming them for their own abuse and completely divesting the Pakistani rapists of all responsibility. One child went into a police station when she was either 10 or 12, I can't remember. She said that she'd just been abused, and they told her to come back when she was sober. And then, if that's not bad enough, she went out and immediately she was gang raped. On the same day. So all of this stuff resonates so deeply. So when these victims say they're not being listened to now, they're thinking about all of that kind of stuff. And if we think about Oldham, for example, is another classic example. One of the abusers was a welfare worker who was under arrest, and they kept him on. He carried on working. He was on secondment, I think, from Rochdale to Oldham, and the original authority didn't tell the other authority that he was under arrest. So all of this stuff, it's a conspiracy of silence. It's shutting people down. It's telling people that they're liars. It's blaming victims. It's all of these terrible things that have happened over and over again. And we're seeing it now. When we saw Jess Phillips stand up the other day and talk about this stuff, and she was having a kind of meltdown, Yes, of course. Who would have any confidence in that?
You said, that this wasn't actually about, upholding multiculturalism. I think you'd agree it was a bit about that,
Yeah.
but essentially, that it was actually about votes. What do you feel about the idea that, for example, fear of Muslim protest is now the overriding factor in all of these kind of decisions and issues?
I suspect that's why they can't get a chair for it, because it's just too worrying. I think there were two potential people lined up and they've both backed down. Because, even Keir Starmer said it in PMQs that the investigation would have to look at race and religion. We know what religion it is, and it's just too scary for people. There was one incident of a social worker going to the Islamic wedding of a child and her abuser. How would you investigate that? It's just gonna bring up so much that it would be terrifying. I've always said that really, for this to be a properly robust investigation, I think they'd have to get people like international to come in, from outside of the UK, so that people can feel fully protected. Because if this is to be serious, it should lead to large-scale prosecutions and people losing their jobs and people facing penalties, and it would be like a real reckoning, particularly of Islam and of Pakistani men. I don't know how else could it not be? So, I don't know how they're going to manage it. I don't think anybody knows how that they know we all know what needs to be done, but all of this kind of kicking it down the can, I think people just know it's just so big of a, task.
Do you think the aim is actually to, as you say, to let it just fade away?
Yeah, absolutely. They're already talking about how this could take 10 years, which is completely unacceptable. The fact that they're also stringing the survivors of this abuse along, you completely hit the nail on the head, Philip. I think it was despicable to see Jess Phillips lying about and suggesting that the victims were lying by saying that this, is already starting to look as if it's a cover-up, that they're trying to broaden the scope and as a result to lose the specificity of looking at the ethnic and the religious component of this. And I think it's because, as you say, Peter, that they fear more violence. They fear the backlash from the communities, not just at the polls, but also at the streets. And so many senior Labour figures had their majorities cut dramatically. People like Wes Streeting, Naz Shah, Shabana Mahmood, their majorities were significantly slashed, almost down to, in some cases, down to the hundreds by independent Muslim candidates who didn't win that time round.
And that was before the reform element as well, which is going to play in massively this time.
And we're also seeing in such, a good example of this is either, the Maccabi Tel Aviv game being cancelled or the UKIP not being allowed to protest in Tower Hamlets, because the police always side with the bully. And that's exactly what caused this scandal in the first place. And the institutional complicity, I agree with you, Amy. I think that there's I've seen Maggie Oliver talking about the need to maybe bring in a judge or a chair or some legal professional from another country who isn't mixed up in the complicity and the vested interests of this. Because there are instances where police officers, one of these victims goes to report and then all of a sudden the abusers have been tipped off. How could that be anything other than a leak from the police force? So,
yes, who might also, dare I once say it, be Muslim.
Yeah, quite. And I think these are issues that the government are afraid to deal with, because it's not just this government, it's successive governments on both, Conservative and Labour. They have been complicit in the failure to actually reckon with their own recognition that multiculturalism has failed. They've known for decades that it's not working. They've known that this is the consequence of importing sectarian politics. And they know that, the blood is on their hands, as it were. And so I think that they'll do everything they can to use the vagueness of widening the scope to not deal with the specific problem.
I think the thing is, what is, the most stark thing that comes at you is the way in which the police now, it's sort of just undisguised. They are there to basically keep protest from white working class people or whatever to a minimum, keep it down. and to basically allow as much as possible from Muslim protests. We saw this during the whole Gaza thing, just simply so that they don't suddenly start getting violent. It's like they know, you say the bully, right? That they start with the bully. They also sort of know what the critical mass is of the population. Now, that is, they are protecting in some ways the bigger part of the population in certain areas of this country.
Yeah, and if this takes 5 or 10 years, that critical mass will be even bigger in terms of demographic change, and God knows where we'll be in 5 or 10 years' time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's the problem here, because if they are too scared to take action now and want to you can't put your head in the sand forever. The situation is only going to get worse. And unfortunately, their policing now is two-tier policing. It's not about what is the right thing to do. It's about which side has got the most number of people it can bring out as a mob onto the streets.
Well, it's what David Betts called negotiated policing.
It is negotiated policing.
We saw it when the police went in and spoke to community leaders and decided that the community were perfectly capable of policing themselves. And, you have these cases where, like, the guy who had the Star of David on and the police said it was a provocation, or the woman walking the dog near a pro-Palestine march. It's within the realms of possibility if you follow that reasoning. If you think also about the case of the park run that excluded women in a public space from being able to take part in that event. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that, say, a woman walking from Bethnal Green to Whitechapel, scantily clad, who gets attacked, the police could say, well, it was just provocation. She was walking through a very religiously conservative area, and she was provoking. And I think when you look at it in that light, you can see how the police, the justice system, really are siding with the bully, because it is always victim blaming. They always target the soft target and allow the aggressor as much space as they want, because they're not willing to actually do the difficult work of policing.
It's the world turned upside down, isn't it? It's precisely what it shouldn't be. But I think there's something more as well. And if you're aware of these areas, it isn't just one area that is very Muslim heavy and has a massive influence. It's a network now. So if you're looking at the north or the northwest or Yorkshire, for example, you're looking at all of these towns around Manchester, in Greater Manchester. They're all connected. And if you go across the Pennines, you go to somewhere like Huddersfield, which is a pretty big town. That's 35% Islam, 35% Muslim.
Really, Huddersfield?
Yeah, Huddersfield. So all of these places, it isn't just one place. We're not just talking now about Dewsbury or Batley. Yeah. We're talking about Rochdale, Oldham and Bolton and Huddersfield and all of those places as well. So these places, it's a network of influences, and those influences just visit themselves very definitely on the big centres, places like Manchester, places like Leeds, places like Birmingham, very obviously, as we've seen. And this influence is spilling over now into violence, but not just violence, but a kind of justified violence, a self-righteous violence. And that's the really frightening thing for me.
I think this has got bearing us too on one of the other stories this week from Robert Jenrick, in the Burqa, hasn't it? I mean, it's an idea that we mustn't be provocative.
Yeah, I mean, so he said in a recent interview that he would ban the burqa. And I think it's becoming a topic that's being spoken about more and more here. Firstly, because I think most of us are seeing it more. Like I've went to the beach in the summer and I've seen people wearing burqas on the beach in South England. And, that's just that, but also that the burqa is being banned in various places in Europe more. So we've recently had Giorgia Meloni in Italy bringing in a partial ban of the burqa. It feels like almost now we're an outlier in Europe in that we don't have any kind of ban on the burqa, and there's multiple places now where it is banned. Obviously, Reform, Sarah Pochin of Reform spoke about it in the Houses of Commons and spoke about how, she asked the question, should it be banned? And there was kind of outcry from people about why is she even asking that. People have responded to Robert Jenrick saying he's un-British just by asking the notion of banning it is un-British. But I would say the burqa is un-British. So it's kind of what's more is banning
defending yourself is un-British.
The people who complain and say, "Oh, you're being un-British," that's not very British. They couldn't give a damn about what's British.
No,
they really couldn't. In fact, they hate what's British.
Yeah, that's the irony.
The whole point is that we're losing a sense of what it means to be British anyway because of this change that we're undergoing. So yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because both the Tories and Reform have not said that it would be their policy to ban the burqa. So it is just Jenrick kind of speaking on his own, really. And I don't know why it wouldn't be their policy. I don't know why we're so nervous about this in a way that other countries aren't.
Well, no, I think the problem is that we've got maybe our police are even more kind of indoctrinated and infiltrated. And you could have a situation where, in fact, they wouldn't impose it.
Yeah.
The police would actually take it upon themselves not to impose it. So. We're at that level. I mean, for that reason is what they couldn't impose it. But what would you think would happen if you went into an area and said, actually, she's breaking the law, that woman, she's wearing a burqa, or I think most of us mean a niqab, don't we? Which is where the whole thing is.
Yeah.
What would happen? I would have thought the police said, we cannot deal with the numbers. There'll be, like, from all sides coming onto them.
It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. I mean, the police's approach is already so light touch with communities, just afraid that they're going to, accidentally ignite the tinderbox. It is inconceivable that a British police officer would go up to a woman who's dressed like that is very likely to be in a Muslim area. It's very likely that if she's that religiously conservative, or at least is married to someone who's religiously conservative enough to force that on her, she's probably not allowed out in public without either her husband or another male relative. There is just no way that in a highly Muslim area a police officer they would make some kind of operational decision that it wasn't worth the trouble to do it. So I just don't think it would be enforceable. And even in countries like France, there were. Am I right in remembering that there were people who would actually pay the fines of the women who got fined for wearing the burqa in public? So I just don't see how.
You mean like their supporters?
I think so. I think there were private donors who were willing to pay those fines.
Yes. I know that it was successfully introduced in Belgium, I think, the ban. But it has worked where they've had it. It's actually worked, apparently.
So it's across loads of countries that you would identify as being progressive, leaning left sort of countries throughout Europe as well. They've successfully done it. There's something unique about Britain and this idea of freedom that we have, where we don't see, that's why people think it's un-British. Look, we cannot be defeatists in this country. We have to assert British values. And the problem is we've been prioritizing minority cultures over British culture for too long. The burqa is not a requirement of the Islamic faith. Just look back to the 1970s at Iran and Afghanistan to see women wearing miniskirts and everything else. This is a relatively newly incorporated thing we're seeing here. Look, when I used to live in Knightsbridge, I went to Dubai and I saw more burqas in Knightsbridge than in Dubai. Right? In the UAE, they're warning us about the level of extremism we have here, the problem we have with radicalized Muslims here. A stand needs to be taken. It may not require. I mean, I think that obviously it should be banned. I think all face covering should be banned actually, because thanks to COVID as well, people now don't seem odd if they're wearing face masks. But shoplifters, the mobile phone thieves on bicycles, they're all covering their faces up now. I think there needs to be a blanket ban. We don't actually, with global warming, need to have your faces covered even in winter these days. So there's no excuse for it. So I think, ban the burqa, ban face coverings as well. We need to be able to see your face to interact. It's a very human thing to engage with each other. I think it's vitally important. But if you don't stand up for it now, the point will come where you'll never be able to stand up for it. France even went to the extent of banning the burqa on the beaches, of course, because people, and even the burkini, which was created as a compromise, that was a robust promotion of France's secular values and French culture. We need a promotion of British culture and British values. That may mean being sensible and not going into the ghettos, into the segregated communities and banning it there. But if you see people on the high streets of Britain, in public places which are much more integrated, then certainly fine and ban them.
Yeah, and there's no argument against it, is there? The argument that it's bizarrely, it's a feminist argument that says these women should be able to do what they want. But there is no choice here, is there? They're from communities which enforce this stuff on them. If it is choice, it's coercive choice. It's nothing more than that. So there is a sense that, I have to laugh when they say it's un-British. Why? Because Britain is now Islamized beyond any shadow of a doubt. But these women are being abused, and they are being abused in these communities. They absolutely have no voice. So it isn't just about us, although it's primarily about us. It is about giving those women a choice and freeing them to some extent from the religious fundamentalism and gross patriarchy that the Western feminists are defending.
I think, though, to be devil's advocate, that the more libertarian type would say that the argument against it is that it's just simply not the state's place to tell people what they should and shouldn't wear. And I think it's a very fair impulse on their part, but sometimes you do have to be specific. You do have to see things in the bigger picture. And I think tackling the burqa in a way is almost a side issue if we're going to talk about, feminism and the Muslim community. There's been a complete unwillingness to do anything about Sharia councils that operate in discriminatory rulings when it comes to custody, divorce, all sorts of things. I mean, the stories of the way that women have been treated by these councils is just horrendous. And people like Baroness Cox have been trying for years to get something done about that, to no avail, because there's no interest in it, because people are too afraid of being called Islamophobic and are too afraid of trespassing on their right to religious freedom. So I think it's in a sense it's an Achilles heel of sort of any liberal democratic system. It seems to be a very British problem.
Yeah, but I think all you have to do is just look at the evidence, and especially the anecdotal evidence caught on camera. I mean, last week I was looking at something which was a mosque in Birmingham where an imam was describing how the correct way of stoning a woman to death. And this is in Birmingham, and this is happening now. So again, it's this idea of where the hell do women stand in our own culture? And we have this brutal culture running parallel to ours, and just living by a completely different set of rules. I think it's actually quite simple in lots of ways, really. You're in Britain, we define what Britishness is, and it isn't Islam, and we work from there.
I think the thing is as well, you can't keep, I'm not saying you were saying this, but you can't keep applying these kind of old rules to a situation of existential struggle. You can't do it. It's like saying, oh, well, it's not very British. Or actually, it wasn't ever very British to go on and on about the flag much, for example. Not really. You didn't mean you weren't patriotic. In fact, you could be very deep. There's a slight embarrassment. We don't really do that. Those days are gone. We've got to do it.
Exactly.
You've got to do it.
We have to respond to local context. Yeah.
As long as it's not called a non-crime hate incident in raising your flag, which brings me to the police, apparently, are saying, or rather the Met Police, that they are no longer going to be reporting or recording these non-crime hate incidents.
That's right, but I think they will still be gathering the data. I don't think they're just completely stopping doing that.
I think they said they're investigating. They're not investigating them, but they are going to record them. Still.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So they will be gathering the data. Is what I'm saying. So what you're writing on Twitter, what you're writing on Facebook, what you're doing on social media, or indeed in the media, will be recorded. So, but I think it's very on one level. On a surface level, I think it's good that we have this small victory, and I think it's down to Graham Linehan really pushing back and getting the new the Free Speech Union involved, and so people, I think people have a false sense of security on this. Bearing in mind, as you say, it is only one police force that have come out and said this, but it is good, I suppose, that it's gone at least that far. What we need to do now is push further and really make sure that they should not be collecting this data. They should not be recording this stuff. And this should be going right across the country. For me, it's a fairly kind of hollow victory, because I can look beneath the surface and I can see, well, they know full well what I'm doing. They know full well what I'm tweeting, because they're recording it. And I think the same goes for everybody around this table.
I mean, to put it in some further context, so we know that Mark Rowley, who's the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, he hasn't been that happy with the requirement to investigate non-crime hate incidents so far. The College of Policing is supposed to have been, has been tasked with reviewing all of this and coming up with some new policies. And as far as we know, he's been tired of waiting for them to come up with something. So he's preempted this by making this decision not to investigate, but to carry on recording, in a sense to throw the gauntlet down and put the onus now on the College of Policing to come up with something very quickly. And the hope is, the hope behind it is, because the Metropolitan Police is so significant in the country, I think it's a quarter of all the nation's policing resources, that where the Metropolitan Police go, other police forces follow. Now we have to wait and see whether it's going to happen or not. But on the ground, they're still very limited. Yeah. You're still going to be recorded. No investigations within the London and Thames Valley region, but it's something at least. And we'll just have to wait and see if anything more develops out of it.
And presumably it could still show up on your DBS check, because I know that's what people are having problem with, the recording of it. I think there was over 200,000 people who had these recordings on their DBS check, so it could still affect people's ability to get a job. So it's, very small win.
I think we are actually the only country to have such a thing as a non-crime hate incident.
Well, we recorded 13,000 of them last year. Right, 13,000. That's insane. But the thing is, the police are just not trained to wade into culture war issues, very complex, contradictory culture war issues. They can't even get hate crime right. I was involved in helping prosecute someone who'd committed blood libel, hate crime. Pure and simple. And they didn't even really know what a blood libel was. And they had no idea really what anti-Semitism was. So I had to actually explain to them historically what all of these things are. Now, this is an actual hate crime. This isn't some kind of, the nuances of gender politics, for example, what constitutes trans or something like that. They have no idea. So for me, that's the really frightening thing.
The thing is, you only have to look at the Shawcross review, for example, where he found the complete disparity in the sorts of things that were being caught in the net of extremism on the Islamist side versus the sorts of things that were really just, literature, Shakespeare. I don't know if it was actually Shakespeare. I think one of them was the Portillo's Railway Journey.
Douglas
Murray. Conservative writers, literature, Tolkien, that sort of thing.
They never arrested Douglas Murray or Michael Portillo, but if you had their DVPs, then you get arrested.
But that was Riku, so that was within the Home Office. And if they don't have the ability to make those sorts of judgments, and it's not just about non-crime hate incidents either. I think you're right that it's a kind of hollow victory, because they'll just get you on a public order offence or malicious communications or something else. If the government bring in the Islamophobia definition, it's just going to become even worse. And all of that aside from the fact that the complete disparity in the way that the guy who burned the Quran was treated versus the guy who went at him wielding a knife and screaming he was going to kill him and ended up not even getting jail time. So I think, the Metropolitan Police's attitude frankly stinks, irrespective of what they decide to do about the recording of non-crime hate incidents. And like you said, they're recording it as intelligence now, so it's still on the record somewhere.
And nothing's changed in terms of public order offence, because that's what they got Graham Linehan on. Someone complained, and then they sent 5 police officers to meet him at Heathrow, and none of that's changed. So
no, it's basically, you get the feeling of tinkering around the edges. They're just doing that just to keep us kind of okay and happy, whatever.
or to have so much news on a particular thing, whether it's the Islamophobia definition or non-crime hate incidents, that people can't really remember where we're at. Unless you're really paying attention and keeping a log, it's difficult to...
Yeah, and things are moving so quickly as well. The next day it's another outrage, and then it's another outrage, and then it's another outrage, and all of a sudden you forget about it.
You mentioned the Islamophobia definition there. Last week it was reported, it was in the Telegraph, that they're actually not going to go with that. But that sort of report has had no follow-up. I wonder, it's very interesting. I haven't seen any more of follow-up. They are doing another definition. It should probably be as cack-handed in the end as this one. But essentially this one we're worrying about, which is, essentially all the issues we've been talking about today would, fall foul of this definition because they're all basically about expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness, Anyway, we are going to carry on a bit for your delight and delectation. We're going to be talking about events up at Oxford University and the charade that's become. But in the meantime, Rafe, thank you very much. Amy, Emma, Philip, we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Our mission at the New Culture Forum is and always has been to defend and celebrate Britain's history, culture and its people, and indeed Western civilization, at a time when both are under sustained attack. We have grown from small beginnings to become the country's most influential right-leaning cultural think tank. Our content is watched and read by some of Britain's most influential political figures. But now, we need your help. If you believe in what we do, then please do become a member. For as little as £4 a month, you can make a vital contribution to what we do. As a member of the NCF family, you will help ensure that we can continue to produce quality content online, such as our 3 weekly programs, Whittle, which is our flagship interview show, Newspeak, our panel discussion show, and Deprogrammed, which is targeted at Britain's youth. As you probably know, in addition, we produce important documentaries, such as our critically acclaimed 6-part series, The West, a stunning celebration of the history and genius of Western civilization, and our ongoing documentary series, Heresies, with hard-hitting episodes tackling subjects such as immigration, gender ideology, and BBC bias. But the New Culture Forum is much more than a YouTube channel. We don't just complain about Britain as it is, we provide real solutions and clear policies on how we can push back against the madness and restore sanity to this nation. Our presenters are now highly sought after and have become familiar faces across the media. Our prestigious annual Smith Lecture and our regional and indeed national conferences have attracted world-class speakers. Perhaps most importantly, we are the only organisation on the right of politics that has launched a national movement without actually being a political party. And uniquely, through our NCF Locals programme, we've established some 30 active branches in towns and cities right across the nation, from Edinburgh to Exeter, and with many more on the way. We're very proud of what we've achieved, and our members have made it possible. In return, our members receive access to exclusive content, invitations to private events, free or discounted tickets to our conferences and lectures, free copies of our books, and much more. I very much hope that you'll join us too by clicking the link in the description or going to our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Now is the time that we need your help. Thank you. Hello, please excuse this brief interruption, but I'd be really grateful if you could please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel. Our mission is vitally important, and we must grow this channel to ensure that our content reaches the biggest possible audience. The best way to do this is for you to subscribe. It's totally free. And in addition to subscribing, if you're able to donate or join our membership scheme, please click on the link in the description or visit our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. We've got great plans ahead, but we can't do it without your support. From only £4 per month, you'll receive a range of perks and benefits, including exclusive content. Thank you.